Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today I have with me Karim Pourak, who is currently the founder at ProcessMiner Inc. He's also a serial entrepreneur who's done multiple startups, but I want to hear more about Karim's background from him. Karim, can you tell me more about your background and how it led you to ProcessMiner Incorporated?
Sure. Hey, Aryan, thank you for having me in your podcast. My name is Karim Pourak. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ProcessMiner. Actually, I'm by training, I'm an information systems engineer. I'm 40, almost 32 years ago, and I started my first company in Atlanta. I was co-founder of one of the fintech company in 2002. And we failed pretty badly in that company. It was my first experience of doing startups. And after about 14 months, we failed within that company, learned a lot, and sort of started moving forward with doing technology work, building sort of a different type of cloud systems at that time. And in 2008, with a very good friend of mine, a PhD from Stanford University, we started another biotech company that in Bay Area. So that we did sort of a biogenetics, predictive health for personalized health using genetic information alongside multiple other factors. And we sort of started in 2008, raised first fund seed money for it in 2010, and then grew the company and exited in 2018. The other company I started was also in population health, again, genomics, biogenetics, and more specifically on cardiovascular diseases with another co-founder, a good friend of mine, again, in Bay Area, and we did it in San Francisco. And we exited that company in 2020, right before COVID. Then throughout this process, doing these different companies, 2008, I got sort of introduced to machine learning, building systems that would sort of consume large amount of data and then some machine learning methodologies to be able to do predictions, right? That was my first exposure to sort of an AI at that time. No one called it AI, but it was machine learning essentially. So data science and machine learning started from that time. And then I learned more and more about the different methodologies, how to build platforms that are highly secure, scalable, as well as being able to consume a large amount of data, being able to bring near real-time predictions, to what we did at that time for personalized health and population health using very large amount of genetics data. And then 2014, a very good friend of mine in Atlanta, that it was in manufacturing, more specifically pulp and paper manufacturing, reached out to me and told me about a problem that manufacturing industry has. And that problem is how everything in the manufacturing industry is optimized reactively. So an event happens, something happened in these manufacturing environments, and operators or optimization engineers react to it, right? And he asked me that based on what we have done on a machine learning side of things, is there any way to be able to change that and transform that to a sort of a proactive control, meaning that we can essentially predict the behavior of the machine, and based on that prediction, then we can control and optimize the machine. So based on my experience, I reached out to also a professor from Georgia Tech, who's our co-founder, Professor Karim, and we pitched the idea to him. I told him that, listen, I've done this for sort of in a biotech side of things, but I like to transform the same exact concept into manufacturing, because again, at the end of the day, human's body is a machine, and if we can do that, if we can predict some certain things there, we should be able to easily do this. So, 2015, myself, Professor Kamran, Mr. Mustanan, who is a manufacturing sort of a veteran, we started the company. I wrote with an intern first version of our platform, and we were off to races. We started getting a pilot in a few months, and we started in the pulp and paper industry. And you may ask, why pulp and paper industry specifically? One main reason, one of our co-founder was 50 years in pulp and paper industry. And paper industry is a highly continuous manufacturing process and very delicate. So it was a great challenge for us to solve. And so we built a platform that continuously now ingest the process data coming from the machine.
Okay.
And we can predict the quality of the product that the machine makes. So unlike a lot that you hear in this industry, that predictive maintenance and things like that, we don't do predictive maintenance. We are actually focusing on quality of the product that's been made, predict it in real time, and then optimize the machine autonomously, meaning that our AI platform continuously ingests the data, predicts the quality, makes recommendation, and then makes changes to the machine like a super operator, right? And autonomously controls the machine. So you can make ultimate quality product. You can reduce a lot of consumption of raw material. So there's a variety of sustainability values and everything else to it.
Excellent. And what variables can actually impact the quality of the product in these particular machines?
So every machine, every manufacturing process, from paper, plastic, name it, any manufacturing water, right? They have a certain variables that those primary variables that are influencers to quality or outcome of the system, right?
Sure.
I give you an example on the paper side of things. A typical paper machine has 3,000 to 4,000 variables in real time that this machine produces, right? So data coming with the very large magnitude throughout the machine. But throughout those 3,000 to 4,000, actually, we narrow down everything to about 200 to 300, but really about 20 of them that are truly
impacting the
Yes. So our system actually is able to narrow all that down, come to the main influencers that can impact the quality. And then what we do, we capture the operator's experience. Is a key. It's very, very important. Listen, one of the things that we tell our customers that we are not the data science company that come and tell you, hey, we solve your problem with the data, right? The experience of operators and domain experts are critical to what we can do and build a practical or applied AI, right? So and there's a big problem also in that area that you're solving. So we capture the experience of these operators, incorporate them into our AI platform that allows our system to become a practical applied type of system that truly you can practically put on a machine. If an operator is optimizing a machine by turning certain knobs on a machine based on a lot of experience they have, we actually incorporate those knowledge into our systems, right? We just don't allow AI to figure it out. We say, hey, these folks work here for 40 years. They have great experience. They were able to optimize, and this experience is very critical. Now, I add one more thing. Why this is important that we are emphasizing as a pillar in our company for domain expertise, that the United States and now globally, we have one big crisis, and that's skilled labor shortage. We don't have enough skilled labor anymore. But in United States, we already lacking nearly 3 million skilled operators in our manufacturing, right? So, and it's getting worse. We are essentially bridging the gap of these folks are retiring or going out of these manufacturing facilities, and a younger generation that they don't go work in these facilities essentially, right? So we capture that information, that knowledge, that very valuable experience, incorporated into our platform, and have been able to successfully build a autonomous optimization control that essentially is a super operator that our clients are using.
Very interesting. Is there a particular scale that you focus on in terms of how much products are being produced? And is there also a particular kind of product you focus on in a particular industry?
So if let me make sure I understood your question. You're talking about the understanding how the quality have to be measured or understand. Is that what you're asking?
Is there a particular, I would say, product you focus on in a specific industry? That's the first question.
Okay. So right now we have over 50 global installations in a pulp and paper industry. right? And we are growing very rapidly there, right? Plastic industry, injection molding, water industry, this is where we are. We're actually getting into food and beverage industry. Our platform, Aryan, is an industry agnostic platform.
Okay.
So we can use our platform in any sort of manufacturing industry. And this is, by the way, this AI for manufacturing. When we started, no one's talked about it. This week, there was a news that Jeff Bezos is gathering $100 billion fund for AI for manufacturing.
Very interesting. Wow.
Right? So they're beginning to see that this is very, very serious market, right? We are fortunate to be sort of a pioneer in that market.
Well, I can imagine at scale, if you're able to consolidate the 20 or maybe two or 300 variables that actually impact the quality of the products, then you can fix this production at scale. That's what I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's a question. That's a question more about how does it affect the ability for manufacturers to produce quality at scale specifically?
So one of the biggest problem manufacturers are dealing with is the cost of production, right? The volatility in overall geopolitical situations in the world, pandemic happened, right? They start seeing that there's it could be a major volatility in raw materials, right, that come into the market. The raw materials a lot of time contribute to the variability of the quality.
Right.
Variability of the quality is the cost, right? So and then it translates to energy. Think about it. If a producer can make a certain amount of product in a certain amount of time, right, and consume a lot of sort of a raw material, if we can help that producer to produce the same quality material or even better, increasing their yield essentially, but reduce the consumption of the raw material by 20%, right? That is a huge cost saving for this customer, right?
Absolutely.
And what does that translate to? You're also making less variable product, better quality product. Your yield improves. And when your yield improves, it means that you're making more better product in that time unit, meaning that you're not using the more energy you need to make better product. So
Excellent.
It has multifaceted value proposition tied to it.
Now, something interesting that's happened recently with Sony, I think this is the beginning of February 2026, is they shifted the global supply chain with 14 other companies. I believe it was switching from their current specific, I think, materials that are more plastic based and more not environmentally friendly to specifically utilizing biomass feedstocks for their specific, I think it was for their specific products, like their flagship products specifically. A question for you is, does it the process that you have here, does it make it easier to shift to more organic materials or more renewable materials as well?
Not directly, but we have also a capability at ProcessMiner called Trial Miner. And what Trial Miner means is that our customers tend to try different type of material for the same purpose, right? And see how the impact is in their quality and their production. And our system allows for a very deep insight into that difference, A/B testing, right? A versus B. So and I'll give you an example. If they have a chemistry that they use as a bonding agent, and now they want to come in and try another more organic type of chemistry, that the objective is to deliver the same exact sort of value to the customer. Now our customers can use our platform to actually compare the timeline of what they traditionally use versus this new product.
Without the production, without actually doing it?
Yeah, they can go in and do it. But what we give them is that very detailed report that says, hey, if you traditionally use product A, and now you're trying the product B, which is more organic, we will give you a difference here. We tell you exactly how product B compares to product A. So it makes their decision making a lot more easier, right? It's not that it specifically knows if you're more organic or it just allows them to have a better capability of understanding if they want to try new things within their process.
Right, right. And this is something that's very interesting to me specifically, because I think clean capital and a clean company specifically are attracting easier access to capital and a lot more. I would also say that customers feel better when they're investing their money into companies that are clean. And the recent shift that Sony has made, I think they've been able to show us in the electronics industry specifically that you can achieve excellent product quality without sacrificing the environment. And that was a recent shift that they've made. Now, if other companies want to be able to make that same shift, I'm assuming if these are smaller companies, the idea of completely changing their whole process to make it more environmentally friendly can be a bit daunting. But a process like this can give an idea before actually having to sacrifice money to do so. So I found that very interesting. Now, as far as the long-term impact in this industry, what is the idea behind that with regard to ProcessMiner?
Well, listen, the vision is to transform manufacturing industry as a whole from reactive to proactive, and then autonomously, right? Because the key here is to make the machines intelligent enough to be able to control and optimize themselves. Now we're releasing actually a capability that we're making the machine for the first time. We're very excited about that. For the first time to start communicating back to the operator. Typically, operators change things on the
machine. They have to figure it out, right? They have to figure it out themselves.
So what I'll explain what we're doing here. Is again, very exciting. We had a first MVP released this week internally. We have a concept called root cause analysis. So something happens on a machine, quality deviates or shifts or goes out of limits. Our system can tell you what are the top 10 influencers that could impact this shift, right? This deviation. But what if you have an operator that is a newer operator, and our system says, "Hey, these are the 10 top 10 variables that you need to look into." What if an operator asks them? Our system says, ask the machine says, "Okay, what do you mean by variable 2B? How does that impact something else?" Right? Our system now translates the machine data and behavior into a natural language. Meaning that it's going to start explaining back. So you can ask a machine and tell them why are you telling me that this variable was influential? And the machine comes back and says, well, this variable is influential because the past 2 months, this variable behaved this way, and it did this, and it impacted this, right? So we're trying to make a machine speak back in a natural language. And we're very excited because we had a first version of this, and it's mind-blowing.
It sounds very compelling, but what I'm interested in hearing now is if this is achievable and it's very accurate, how does that change the hiring process for the operators? Can they hire less skilled individuals for lower prices?
Well, that's you just explained what I mentioned in the beginning. The problem is that we don't have enough operators to even hire. So your pool is very small. So you can bring engineers now into your organization and have the machine start training them.
Very exciting.
Right? Wow, instead of an operator training them. So if the machine can start communicating with the operator, right, and tell them how they feel, well, we have done half of it. Because imagine if you go to a doctor and tell them exactly how you feel, they can really help you. But if you can't communicate, they're not going to be able to help you much.
Exactly. I think the work you're doing here is absolutely industry changing. And I think at scale as well, I think at scale specifically, because we have that labor shortage specifically, the ability to actually solve this problem with the lack of labor shortage is going to be monumentally different when you have a machine that's able to detect what's actually wrong, explain exactly what's wrong in the machine specifically. I think that's very interesting work you've been doing here, and I think it's essentially industry changing. So how about we shift this conversation to a little bit more about you, Karim? And the first question I have for you is, what is something about you or your life that you wish more people knew about?
Well, what I wish my friends know about me, I'm very open. I'm an open book. I have a very, very interesting background. right? I've lived in multiple different countries.
Mhm.
I lived in Japan for 4 years. I lived in Finland for about 8 years. I've been in the US for 30 years actually this year. I love traveling, so I've traveled a lot of different countries. But during the course of living in Japan, in Finland, and then in US, so in Japan, I went to school. I learned Japanese. I speak a little bit still, and this is 40 years ago. And then I went to Finland, lived there for about 8 years. I speak still fluent Finnish. So very, very diverse languages, right? I'm originally
Mhm.
from Iran, so I speak Farsi, and then been here for 30 years. But when I left Iran when I was 21, I only spoke Farsi. So I started learning all
Wow.
these throughout my life, right? And and when I look back at it, all the challenges I had, I use them to strengthen myself, right? And that became norm for me. So the
Right.
challenges always feels like an opportunity to me now. You
Mhm.
know, and it's been years like that I felt like, all right, if anything is happening, I have this positive shift on it that says, all right, if I can overcome all these things in my life, my mindset has changed to look at problems as opportunity.
Very interesting. At the beginning, however, did it feel like these problems you encountered, did they feel problematic? Or
Traumatic.
did you eventually feel like that's became your baseline and now you're used to it? How did
True,
that
true.
process go?
And when you're 21, right? Of course, I went through military during when I was 21, war, refugee. I was a war refugee, you know, at one point. You start for me, these different challenges start make sort of putting these different blocks that start building my personality in my life,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Of course, they're challenging. When you're younger, you don't have enough experience. Trauma has a major impact on you, right? Bigger
Yeah.
impact
Yeah.
until you then look at the events and you sort of control the traumatic effect of it in your life.
Right.
And
Right.
that comes by experience,
Mhm.
right? So I think I'm an older man now, and I went through life and I learned a lot, and I've been fortunate to have a wonderful family. My wife's been is pillar to my in my life, and
Excellent.
that has been a blessing for me, you know. So yeah,
Well, one last question for you is I believe you said you started off as a system engineer. Was that correct?
information system engineer, yeah.
Information systems engineer. How did you go from that to starting to become an entrepreneur? How did you make that decision?
Well, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, right?
Okay.
And when I moved to when I lived in Finland, I went to school there. I was working for a company, automation company. When I came to US, I felt like, okay, I'm in the right place because because this is the place to, if you want to, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a capitalist, I will call it, this is where everything is available to you, right? And all the tools are available. So I actually I had a job in the company. I started working for a few companies for about 2 to 3 years to just learn the system first, and then
Mhm.
I quit and I started my consulting company, right? And I had to learn jump ship at one point, and actually that was a very good experience for me because it taught me that hey, you know what? If you want to do something, you either got to do it, commit to it, do it full time. Otherwise, it's a hobby,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's where I started my consulting company first. Then I started getting to know more people. You mentioned in the beginning that it's all about who you know, right?
Absolutely.
And opportunities arise that I could be part of companies, co-founders, startups, and I felt like I'm truly enjoying this. Even the first one that I failed felt so painful, right? But about a year and a half after that, I said, listen, this felt so good, even though I failed, right? Because
Yeah.
I learned so much from it. And it's a
Certainly.
bug. A lot of people like me, they said, if you do it once, there's a bug there. It's never going to go away. You keep doing it.
Well, Karim, what are your plans for this year? And you can reveal both professionally and personally. What are your plans for this year?
On the business side, we just raised money. We never, so my company, we grew the company organically, never raised money. We're profitable. Just closed our fund first time see, that the plan is to expand our team, expand our footprint. We are global, and we want to go ahead and get into other industries, food and beverage, and a few other industries, and get the company to a valuation that we are planning, and we are going to get the company to in terms of revenue. For me, in a personal, I don't. Every day is I want to be a better version of me,
Sure.
than yesterday. So every small thing I learn every day is what my plan is.
And is LinkedIn the best place to find out more about you and ProcessMiner, or is there a website you have specifically too?
Oh, website processminer.ai or processminer.com, and of course LinkedIn is.
Excellent.
But if anyone is interested, again, they can contact us. We can have contact information there too.
Absolutely. This was Aryan Mohindra and Karim